just remind the people of God who has assembled in the house of God, someone perhaps here is in desperate need of a turnaround in your life. And certainly I want you to know that a turnaround, God is yet able to turn whatever your circumstance, whatever your situation is. I want you to leave here saying to yourselves, God is able to turn it around. However, the part you play, what you and I must do if we're expecting God to turn it around for us, it is essential, it is imperative that you and I believe. We must believe that God is able. We must believe that God will turn it around. You must understand, saints of God, that whenever you allow fear and doubt to apprehend you and arrest you, that can rob you of your turnaround. You and I must believe. We must believe again that God is able to turn it around for us, regardless of what it is, how bad it may look and seem in your life. I want you to know that God's able to turn it around. And truthfully speaking, here today, there is something in the area of your life as well as my life where I need God to turn it around. And then there are some circumstances, situations we must understand that can't no man turn it around. No, you know what I'm talking about. That situation in your life that can't nobody turn that thing around but God. And I want you to know today that He's able to turn it around for you. Let's look at this. Let's look at this text, and I want to share a story with you that I read about a pastor. And this particular pastor's daughter had went to the hospital. And after being there overnight, his daughter, this girl, she went into a coma. And needless to say, her father / pastor, he began to pray that God would heal his daughter. This pastor and father, he was confident that the medical staff was competent, and he felt as if his daughter she would, in a few days, began to feel better. What was most interesting is that while he was in his daughter's room, he overheard the nurse say, "We're losing her." The nurse said her heart rate is dropping. Blood pressure is dropping. Her pulse is weak. We're losing her. My friends, today, it was at that time that this pastor and father, he knew that things were serious. So the father, he walked out of the room and he walked down the hall, and you can only imagine what he began to do. He began to pray. He began to pray. He began to ask God for a miraculous turnaround for his daughter. It was interesting that when his father and pastor had finished praying, he then walked back in the room and he overheard the nurse who was talking to another gentleman in the room he did not recognize, but he overheard the nurse saying to the gentleman, says, "Hey, doctor, what are you doing here? What are you doing here at the hospital? Today is your off day." The doctor who was in the room says, "Well, I don't know. I was in the area and I felt as if somebody needed me." And it was interesting. It was interesting that as he continued to talk to the nurse, and he started looking at the girl, and he started kind of diagnosing her situation. And he says to the nurse, he says, I know what the problem is. He diagnosed the case and said, we need to take her down for emergency surgery. So they did. They took her down for emergency surgery. But what was interesting is about some 6 hours later, after the surgical procedure, the little girl woke up. The little girl began to feel so much better. So much so that she began to talk. All right. She says to her father, she says, Dad, you think I can go home? I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling good. You think I can go home? And the father says, baby, I'm sure it won't be long now. You'll be able to go home, but you've been a sick little girl. And the father right there in the presence of his daughter, he began to praise God and celebrate God and appreciate God for this miraculous turnaround of his daughter. Oh, my friends, today, that's really my sermon in a story today. That's really the sermon in a story today. I want you to know today, as you leave here today, don't know what your situation is, but I do know that God is able to turn it around. He's able to turn it. He's able to turn it around. Let's look at this text. I got a few things I want to share with you. As I mentioned, I want to just kind of commence this sermon today, but I want to conclude it perhaps on next Sunday if the Lord delays his coming, because I want us to look at the making of Jairus' turnaround. I want to just share a few principles with you that I see in the verses that we've read together. First of all, I want us to understand the context here is that in Mark chapter 5, there are 3 cases given in this chapter. Stay with me, which are absolutely, humanly speaking, hopeless and impossible. Let me say that again. There are 3 cases, 3 situations here in Mark chapter 5 from a human perspective. Human perspective, they are hopeless and impossible. There was the demoniac man. There was a diseased woman. And there was a dead girl. All 3 of these cases were considered, if you will, to be hopeless. But my friends today, can I tell you, but God. I want you to understand from a human perspective, they looked bad, they were hopeless, but Jesus was able to turn all 3 around. And so if you don't receive anything else from this sermonic presentation today, I want you to leave here saying to yourselves, He's able to turn it around for me. Because if He did it before, He's able, I wish I had Him. He's able to do it again. He's able to turn it. He's able to turn it around.